the son of a slave girl. 267. Then it occurred to the Bhagava thus: this young Ambatha degrades the Sakyans severely by calling them as men of low birth. It were better for me to inquire into his lineage. Then the Bhagava asked young Ambatha, Ambatha, what is your lineage? O Gautama, I am a Kanhayana by lineage. Ambatha, if the name and lineage on both sides of your mother and father are investigated in proper succession, it will be discovered that you are the descendant of a slave girl belonging to one of the Sakyans, whereas the Sakyans are the descendants of a master race. Ambatha, the Sakyans regard King Okaka as their ancestor. Ambatha, what happened in the past is that King Okaka banished his elder sons Okamuka, Karakandu, Hathanika and Sinistra in order that he could install as king the son of his most beloved queen. The elder sons who were thus exiled went out and lived in a big teak forest near a lake on the slopes of the Himalayas. Being apprehensive of losing purity of their line, they consorted with their own sisters. At one time, Ambatha, King Okaka asked his ministers in attendance, Ministers, where can my sons be living now? Your Majesty, said the ministers, your sons are residing in a big teak forest near a lake on the slopes of the Himalayas. Being apprehensive of losing the purity of their line, they consort with their own sisters. Then, Ambatha, King Okaka made this exultant utterance: able indeed, O my people, are my sons. Most able indeed, O my people, are my sons. Ambatha. Henceforth, after his exultant utterance, they became known as Sakyans. Able. Okdga is the foremost ancestor of the Sakyans. Ambatha, King Okaka had a slave girl by the name of Desa. She gave birth to a child who was named Kana. Kana, as soon as he was born, spoke, Mother, wash me, mother, bathe me, cleanse me of impurities. I shall be of benefit to you. Ambatha, just as nowadays people could recognize a demon, Pitaka, when they see one, in those days people could recognize a demon when they saw one and called him Kana. This child, they said, speaks as soon as it is born. A Kana is born. A Pihashsaka is born. Originating from such words thus spoken, the lineage of the Kana has come to be known as Kanhayana. That Kana is the foremost ancestor of the lineage of the Kanhas. Thus, Ambatha, if the name and lineage on both sides of your mother and father are investigated in proper succession, it will be discovered that the Sakyans are the descendants of a master race, whereas you are the descendant of a slave girl of a Sakyan. 268. As this had been said, the young man person addressed the Bhagava thus: Revered Gautama, please do not degrade Ambatha so severely with words, imputing him to be a slave girl's son. Gautama, young Ambatha is of good birth. He also comes of a good family. He also is knowledgeable. He also speaks pleasantly, and he is also learned. He is able to argue with revered Gautama on this subject. 269. Then the Bhagava spoke to the young man thus: if you consider that young Ambatha is not of good birth, not having come of a good family, unknowledgeable, not of pleasant speech, unlearned and unable to argue with Samana Gautama on this subject, let young Ambatha remain silent, and it will be you and I who are to discuss the matter. But if you consider that young Ambatha is of good birth, having come of a good family, knowledgeable, of pleasant speech, learned and able to argue with Samana Gautama on this subject, you remain. 1. According to the commentary, this subject here means the Vedas. Silent. It will be young Ambatha and I who are to discuss the matter. Revered Gautama, young Ambatha is of good birth. He comes of a good family. He is knowledgeable, of pleasant speech, and learned. He will be able to argue with friend Gautama on this subject. We shall remain silent. Let young Ambatha himself discuss the matter with the revered Gautama. 270. Then the Bhagava asked young Ambatha thus: now, Ambatha, there has arisen a relevant question which you will have to answer even though you may not want to. If you refuse to answer definitely, or if you are evasive, or if you remain silent, or if you go away without answering, your head will split into 7 pieces right here. Now, what have you to say to this, Ambatha? What have you heard from the old and aged Brahmanas who are your teachers and dasher of your teachers? When did the lineage of Kana arise? Who is the foremost ancestor of the lineage of Kana? When he was thus questioned, Young Ambatha remained silent. And for the second time the Bhagava asked him, "Now, Ambatha, what have you to say to this? What have you heard from the old and aged Brahmanas who are your teachers and teachers of your teachers? When did the lineage of Kanna arise? Who is the foremost ancestor of the lineage of Kanna?" For the second time young Ambatha remained silent. Then the Bhagava said to young Ambatha, "Ambatha, answer me forthwith. It is not the time for you to remain silent." Whoever, Ambatha, fails to answer the Tathagata repeatedly for 3 times when a reasonable question is put to him, will have his head split into 7 pieces right there. 271. At that time, Sakka, holder of the thunderbolt armed with a burning, blazing and glowing sledgehammer, stood in the sky, intending, "I will split young Ambatha's head into 7 pieces if he refuses to answer the Bhagava who has asked a reasonable question." Only the Bhagava and young Ambatha could see Sakka, holder of the thunderbolt. 272. Then young Ambatha, very much terrified, with hair bristling through fright, seeking safety, shelter and refuge in the person of the Bhagavad, sat closer to him and addressed him thus. What did the Venerable Gautama say? Will the Venerable Gautama please say it again? Ambatha, what have you to say to this? What have you heard when your old and aged Brahmanas who are your teachers and teachers of your teachers? When did the lineage of Kanna arise? Who is the foremost ancestor of the lineage of Kanna? O Gautama, I have heard about them just as the revered Gautama has told me. The Kanhas are descended from that slave girl Pisaka. She is foremost ancestor of the Kanhas. The lineage of Ambatha. 273. When that had been said, those young men, accompanying Ambatha, spoke so loudly and boisterously, that there was a resounding noise. Friends, young Ambatha is said to be of not good birth. Young Ambatha is said not to have come from a good family. Young Ambatha is said to be the son of a slave girl of a Sakyan. And friends, it has been said that the Sakyans are the sons of the masters of young Ambatha. We have wrongly presumed that Samana Gautama, who speaks according to the Dhamma, is to be upbraided. 274. Then it occurred to the Bhagava thus. These young men are degrading young Ambatha severely with the words, imputing him to be a slave girl's son. It will be well for me to save him from being thus degraded. Then the Bhagavad spoke to those young men. Young men, do not degrade the young Ambatha severely with the words. A descendant of a slave girl that Kanna was a powerful hermit. He retired to the southern country and learnt the noble art of mantras. Returning from there, he approached King Okaka and asked for the hand of his daughter, Madaripi, in marriage. Then King Okaka said, "O my people, how dare this Kanna ask for the hand of my daughter, Madaripi, in marriage when he is only the son of my slave girl?" Enraged and displeased, he fixed his bow with an arrow, but he could not let it fly, nor could he take it off the string. Then, young men, the ministers in attendance begged the Kanna saying, "O good Ise, help our king out. O good Ise, help our king out." "The king shall be helped out," said the Ise, "but should he shoot his arrow downwards, the earth in his kingdom would break up." "Help our king out, O good Ise, and save the kingdom." 2. "The king shall be helped out and the kingdom also shall be saved, but should he shoot his arrow upwards, there will be drought in the kingdom for 7 years." "Help our king out, O good Ise, and save the kingdom." 2. "And let there be rain also." "The king shall be helped out and the kingdom also shall be saved, and the rain shall come. But let the king aim his arrow at his eldest son. The prince shall remain unruffled, and not a single hair on his body would stand on end." Then, young men, the ministers said to King Okaka thus, "It has been said that if King Okaka aims his arrow at his eldest son, the prince, the latter will remain unruffled, not a single hair on his body standing on end." The King Okaka aimed his arrow at his eldest son, the prince, who remained unruffled, not a single hair on his body standing on end. Then King Okaka, on being threatened by supreme punishment, through the mantra, became alarmed, and frightened, and suffered horripilation. He then gave his daughter, Madartpi, to Kanna. That Kanna was a powerful hermit. Superiority of the Katiyas. 275. Then the Bhagava said to young Ambatha, "What do you think of this, Ambatha? If, in this world, A young man of the family of Kshatriya, ruling class, marries a Brahmana maiden and begets a son out of this wedlock. Is the son born of the union of the Kshatriya young men and the Brahmana maiden entitled to get a rightful place and water in the community of the Brahmana? Yes, Gautama, he would. And would the Brahmanas let him take food offered to Brahmanas in honor of the departed ones, or at some other feast to honor auspicious occasions, or to make sacrifices or to entertain guests? Yes, Gautama, they would. And would the Brahmanas teach him Vedas or not? Yes, Gautama, they would. And would the Brahmanas forbid or not forbid him should he take a Brahmana maiden for a wife? O Gautama, they would not forbid. And would the Kshatriyas consecrate him as Kshatriya? O Gautama, certainly they would not. Why not? Because he is not of royal descent on his mother's side. What do you think of this, Ambatha? If, in this world, a young Brahmana marries a maiden of the family of Kshatriyas, ruling class, and begets a son out of this wedlock, is the son born of the union of the Brahmana young man and the Kshatriya maiden entitled to get a rightful and water in the community of the Brahmanas? Yes, Gautama, he would. And would the Brahmanas let him take food offered to Brahmanas in honor of the departed ones, or at some other feast to honor auspicious occasions, or to make sacrifices, or to entertain guests? Yes, Gautama, they would. And would the Brahmanas teach him Vedas or not? Yes, Gautama, they would. And would the Brahmanas forbid or not forbid him should he take a Brahmana's maiden for a wife? No, Gautama, they would not forbid. And would the Kshatriyas consecrate him as a Kshatriya? Gautama, certainly they would not, because he is not of royal descent on his father's side. 276. Thus, Ambatha, comparing women with women and men with men, the Kshatriyas are superior and the Brahmanas are inferior. What do you think of this, Ambatha? If, in this world, for a certain offense, a Brahmana had his head shaved and sprinkled with ashes and was banished by the Brahmanas from the country or town, would he get his rightful place and water in this community of the Brahmanas? No, Gautama, they would not. And would the Brahmanas let him take food offered to Brahmanas in honor of the departed ones, or at some other feast to honor auspicious occasions, or to make sacrifices, or to entertain guests? No, Gautama, they would not. And, would the Brahmanas teach him Vedas or not? No, Gautama, they would not. And would the Brahmanas forbid him or not forbid him, should he take a Brahmani maiden for a wife? Yes, Gautama, they would forbid. What do you think of this, Ambatha? If, in this world, for a certain offense, a Kshatriya had his head shaved and sprinkled with ashes and was banished by the Kshatriya from the country or town, would he get his rightful place and water in the community of the Brahmanas? Yes, Gautama, he would. And would the Brahmanas let him take food offered to Brahmanas in honor of departed ones, or at some other feast to honor auspicious occasions, or to make sacrifices, or to entertain guests? Yes, Gautama, they would. And would the Brahmana teach him Vedas or not? Yes, Gautama, they would. And would the Brahmanas forbid him or not forbid him should he take a Brahmani maiden for a wife? O Gautama, they would not forbid. 277. Ambatha, a Kshatriya who has his head shaved and sprinkled with ashes and is banished from the country or town becomes degraded to the lowest status. Even when a Kshatriya is thus degraded to the lowest status, he still remains superior whilst the Brahmanas are inferior. Ambatha, Sankhya, the Brahma, has uttered this stanza. Eminent are the Kshatriyas among people who put reliance on their lineage. But among devas and men, he, who is endowed with knowledge and practice of morality, stands out as preeminent. A well-sung, Ambatha, is the Gatha by Sankhya, the Brahma. It is not ill-sung, and well-recited it is not ill-recited. It conduces to benefit, and not otherwise. I agree with him, Ambatha, and I say this to you. Eminent are the Kshatriyas among people who put reliance on their lineage. But among devas and men, he, who is endowed with knowledge and practice of morality stands out preeminent. End of the first portion. For morality, begin knowledge and practice of morality. Vijtakarana. 278. What, O Gautama, is that practice of morality, karana, and that knowledge, Vijja, Ambatha. In the fullness of the incomparable knowledge and perfect practice of morality, one should not speak of birth, lineage and pride, of birth, etc. Thus, you are as worthy as I or you are not as worthy as I am Batha. In matters of marriages relating to acceptance of the bride, into one's family, or giving away the bride, to another's family, or to both customs, of acceptance and giving away, one may speak of birth, lineage and pride thus, you are as worthy as I or you are not as worthy as I but, Ambatha. Those who are bound by notions of birth, lineage or pride and of marriage, customs, relating to the acceptance or giving away of the bride, will be far removed from perfection in incomparable knowledge and practice of morality. Ambatha. Those who are not bound by notions of birth, lineage or pride and of marriage, customs, relating to acceptance or giving away of the bride will realize for themselves perfection in incomparable knowledge and practice of morality. 279. What, Venerable Gautama, is that practice of morality, Karana, and that knowledge, Vijja, Ambatha? There appears in this world a Tathagata who is worthy of special veneration, who truly comprehends all the Dhammas by his own intellect and insight, who possesses supreme knowledge and perfect practice of morality, who speaks only what is beneficial and true, who knows all the three lokas, who is incomparable in taming those who deserve to be tamed, who is the teacher of devas and men, who is the enlightened one, knowing and teaching the four Araya truths, and who is the most exalted. Through perfect wisdom, he personally realizes the nature of the universe with its devas, madras, and brahmas, and also the world of human beings, with its smanas and brahmanas, king and men, and knowing it. By himself through Sabbathaphi Uddhayana, he expounds on it. He proclaims the Dhamma, which is excellent at the beginning, excellent at the middle and excellent at the end, with richness in meaning and words. He makes clear the completeness and purity of the noble practice. Brahmacarya, a householder or his son, or anyone belonging to any caste listens to that Dhamma. On hearing the Dhamma, he develops faith in the Tathagata. When faith is thus developed, he reflects in the following manner: being detached from sensual pleasures and demeritorious factors, that bhikkhu achieves, and remains in the first jhana, which is accompanied by Vitaka, initial application of the mind on its object, Vikdra, sustained application of the mind, and which has piti, delightful satisfaction, and sukha, bliss, born of detachment from the hindrances, nivaranas, p. This is the practice of morality of that bhikkhu. And again, Ambatha, having got rid of Vitaka and Vikdra, the bhikkhu achieves and remains in the second jhana with internal tranquility, with enhancement of one-pointedness of concentration, devoid of Vitaka and Vikara, but with piti and sukha born of concentration. P. And this also is the practice of morality of that bhikkhu. And again, Ambatha, having been detached from piti to that bhikkhu, dwells also in equanimity with mindfulness and clear comprehension only, and experiences sukha in mind and body. He achieves and remains in the third jhana, that which causes a person who attains it to be praised by the Arayas as one who has equanimity and mindfulness, one who abides in sukha. P. This is also the practice of morality of that bhikkhu Bhadya. And again, Ambatha, by dispelling both pain and pleasure and by the previous disappearance of sadness and gladness, that bhikkhu achieves and remains in the fourth jhana, without pain and pleasure, a state of absolute purity of mindfulness due to equanimity. P. This also is the practice of morality of that bhikkhu. Ambatha. These are four jhanas, the practice of morality, mentioned before. When the concentrated mind becomes purified, pellucid, unblemished, undefiled, malleable, pliable, firm and imperturbable, that bhikkhu directs and inclines his mind to insight knowledge. This also is the knowledge of that bhikkhu. He knows that for the purposes of the path he has nothing more to 1. A. In mind and body, mind is included according to the commentary. 2. As in the Samhitta Sutta, para 237 to 250. 3. 3. As in the Samhitta Sutta, para 235 to para 236. 4. Do, and this also is the knowledge of that bhikkhu. Ambajtha. These 8 categories constitute knowledge, mentioned before. Ambatha. This bhikkhu may be said to have become endowed with knowledge or endowed with practice of morality or endowed with both knowledge and practice of morality. Ambatha. There is no other endowment which can surpass or which is more noble than this endowment with knowledge and practice of morality. Decay of Vijjikarana in 4 ways. 280. Ambatha. There are 4 ways by which endowment with incomparable knowledge and practice of morality, Vijjikarana, is brought into decay. And what are these 4? Ambatha. In this world some samanas and brahmanas, unable to be endowed with incomparable knowledge and practice of morality, Vijjikarana, enter a forest carrying the requisites of hermit with yokes on their shoulders, vowing to themselves, I will practice living only on fruits that fall by themselves. But, in fact, that person is only an attendant on one who is endowed with knowledge and practice of morality. This, Ambatha, firstly, is the way by which endowment with incomparable knowledge and practice of morality is brought into decay. And, again, Ambatha, here in this world some samanas and brahmanas, unable to be endowed with incomparable knowledge and practice of morality and also being unable to practice living only on fruits that fall by themselves, enter a forest, carrying with them hoes and baskets, vowing to themselves, I will practice living on tubers, roots and fruits. But in fact, that person is only attendant on one who is endowed with incomparable knowledge and practice of morality. This, Ambatha, secondly, is the way by which endowment with incomparable knowledge and practice of morality is brought into decay. And, again, Ambatha, in this world, some samanas and brahmanas, unable to be endowed with incomparable knowledge and practice of morality and also being unable to practice living only on fruits that fall by themselves, and also being unable to practice living only on fruits that fall by themselves, and also being unable to practice living only on fruits that fall by themselves, and also being unable to practice living only on tubers, roots and fruits, set up a building where sacrificial fire is kept near a village or town and keep the fire always burning. But in fact, that person is only an attendant on one who is endowed with incomparable knowledge and practice of morality. This, Ambatha thirdly, is the way by which endowment with incomparable knowledge and practice of morality is brought into decay. And again, Ambatha, in this world some samanas and brahmanas, unable to be endowed with incomparable knowledge and practice of morality and also being unable to practice living only on fruits that fall by themselves, and also being unable to practice living only on tubers, roots and fruits, and also being unable to become a fire worshipper, built a house with 4 doors at the junction of 4 roads, vowing to themselves, I will make offerings to the test of my ability to those samanas and brahmanas who come from 2 directions. This, Ambatha, fourthly, is the way by which endowment with incomparable knowledge A1D practice cf morality is brought into decay. These, Ambatha, are the 4 ways by which endowment with incomparable knowledge and practice of morality is brought into decay. 281. Ambatha, what do you think of this? Do you think that you together with your teacher, are endowed with the incomparable knowledge and practice of morality? No, O Gautama. What kind of men, O Gautama, are we, my teacher and Miskal? That is that thing called endowment with incomparable knowledge sense and practice of morality. O Gautama, my teacher and myself are Farayarambayar.g endowed with incomparable Vijjikarana, knowledge and practice of morality. Ambatha, what do you think about this? Since you and your teacher cannot be endowed with incomparable knowledge and practice of morality, do you enter the forest carrying the requisites of a sage with yokes on your shoulders vowing to yourselves, we will practice living on fruits that fall by themselves? No, O Gautama. We do not. Ambatha, what do you think of this? Since you and your teacher cannot be endowed with incomparable Vijjikarana, knowledge and practice of morality, and cannot practice living on fruits that fall by themselves, do you enter the forest carrying with you hoes and baskets vowing to yourselves, we will practice living only on tubers, roots and fruits? No, O Gautama. We do not. Ambatha, what do you think of this? Since you and your teacher cannot be endowed with incomparable knowledge and practice of morality, and also cannot practice living on fruits that fall by themselves nor practice living on tubers, roots and fruits, do you set up a building where sacrificial fire is kept near the village or town, keeping the fire always burning? No, O Gautama, we do not. Ambatha, what do you think of this? Since you and your teacher cannot be endowed with incomparable knowledge and practice of morality and cannot practice living on fruits that fall by themselves, and also cannot practice living on tubers, roots and fruits, and also cannot become a fire worshipper always burning, for worship, do you build a house with 4 doors at the junction of 4 roads, vowing to yourselves, we will make offerings to the best of our ability to those samanas and brahmanas who come from the 4 directions? No, O Gautama, we do not. 282. Thus, Ambatha, you and your teacher have fallen short of being endowed with incomparable vijtakarana, knowledge and practice of morality, and also fallen short of due training in the 4 ways that bring about decay and endowment with incomparable knowledge and practice of morality. Ambatha, even though your teacher Brahmana Pakkarasati has fallen short of due training in the 4 ways that bring about decay and endowment with knowledge and practice of morality, he said such words as, who are those shavelings, contemptible samanas, men of low birth, blacks, and those born from insteps of the Brahma? What is the discussion with Brahmanas skilled in the 3 Vedas? See, Ambajtha, how serious is the wrong done by your teacher Brahmana Pakkarasati? A study of the hermits of ancient times. 283. Ambatha, Brahmana Pakkarasati enjoys whatever King Pasenadi Kosala gave him, but the king never allows the Brahmana to see him face to face. Whenever Brahmana Pakkarasati talked face to face with King Pasenadi Kosala, he overpowered the latter with his magic, Avatanimaya, to obtain valuable objects without the willing consent of the owner. As this was discovered, the king had a curtain drawn between him and the Brahmana whenever he had to speak with him. Whenever he consults with the latter, he speaks to him from behind a curtain. Why, Ambatha, is it that the king refuses to see face to face the Brahmana who accepts what is granted lawfully? See, Ambatha, how serious is the wrong done by your teacher Brahmana Pakkarasati? 284. Ambajtha, what do you think of this? Here is this instance when King Pasenadi Kosala happens to discuss things with his distinguished ministers or princes, either sitting on the neck of his elephant, or on the back of his horse, or on the footrug of his chariot. Then he may leave the place of discussion and be seated elsewhere in a suitable place. Suppose that a working man, or a servant of a working man, should come up, take the king's place and give counsel, saying, King Pasenadi Kosala said so. King Pasenadi Kosala said so. He might speak as the king might have spoken, or might give counsel as the king might have given. Would he thereby be taken for the king or even his ministers? No, O Gautama. 285. Ambatha, and there were certain former sages of the Brahmins, who were the makers of the Veda hymns, who handed down the Veda hymns. The Brahmins of today chant, intone, recite and teach these ancient Veda hymns exactly as they were chanted, intoned and composed. Recited and taught by those sages. Who are these ancient sages? They are Ambatha, Vamaka, Vamidva, Vasamata, Yamatagi, Andrasa, Bharadvaja, Vaistha, Kasapa and Bagu. You may say, I together with my teacher have learnt those Vedas. But this is no reason for you to say that thereby you have become a sage or one trained to become a sage. 286. Ambatha, what do you think about this? What have you heard when old and aged teachers and the teachers of those teachers said among themselves, there were certain former sages of Brahmins, who were the makers of the Veda hymns, who handed down the Deva hymns. The Brahmins of today chant, intone, recite and reach these ancient Veda hymns exactly as they were chanted, intoned and composed, recited and taught by those sages. Who are these ancient sages? They are Athaka, Vamaka, Vamidva, Vasamata, Yamatagi, Andrasa, Bharadvaja, Vasetha, Kasapa and Bagu. Have you heard that those sages, like you and your teacher, are now enjoying the pleasures of the 5 senses, well washed, well perfumed, well groomed with hair and beard, and, wearing ruby earrings and clad in white garments. No, O Gautama, I have not. Ambatha, what do you think of this? Have you heard that those sages lived, like you and your teacher, are now living on cooked rice, cleared of black grains, cooked with cleansed meat, with various soups and curries of meat? No, O Gautama, I have not. Have you heard that those sages enjoyed, like you and your teacher, are now enjoying the company of women wearing dresses with fringes and flounces round their waists? No, O Gautama, I have not. Have you heard that those sages, went about like you and your teacher, are now going about in chariots drawn by well-groomed mares, poking them with long goads? No, O Gautama, I have not. Have you heard that those sages, like you and your teacher, are now being guarded, had their towns well fortified, with moats dug around them, and city gates well barred, guarded by men well armed with long sword? So, Ambatha, you and your teacher are no sage nor one training to become a sage. Ambatha, anyone who has doubt and perplexity about me can question me and I can answer so that doubt and perplexity are dispelled.